Ron Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, you know, once again, it's very interesting listening to some of the speeches from the government benches, because you really would think from on the back of that speech that everything that the National Party governments did prior to 1984 was bad, wrong. They must have been such a useless bunch of governors, administrators, ministers and prime ministers. That's what Mr. Bishop thinks of his legacy of his old National Party. Up in Pahiatua, in the Wairarapa and Mangamutu, we don't think that way, because the Right Honourable Sir Keith Holyoake came from Mangamutu. He was dearly loved, and people didn't think he was an idiot, Mr. Bishop. They thought he was actually a very kind, generous man who actually stood by the old principles of the old National Party. Something has been replaced by the Liberal Party of New Zealand, which is very evident in these budgets and very evident in the speeches that we hear today. The National Party is this budget, these estimates don't reflect the National Party. They reflect a neoliberal party that has managed to take over what was once a grand old party, a party that was strong on its social conscience, firm in its head about personal responsibility and managing with fiscal prudence the economy of the nation, the development of all of its people. This is a government that thinks it's better to divest itself of such onerous responsibilities as providing housing for low-income New Zealanders, for New Zealanders who struggle because of the very low wages they earn, because of the very competitive trickle-down free market economy that we have created. This is the new National Party, the new Liberal Party of New Zealand, that believes in the fiscalisation of our economy, as opposed to managing the nation's economy to the benefit of all people, not just the wealthy elite few who happen to own personally millions of dollars. You know, the very same people who benefited the most by the magic tax cuts that so undermined this government's ability to deliver competent, capable, efficient, effective public services to the people of New Zealand, like being able to run a prison where prisoners were safe, being able to run a justice system that kept the citizens of New Zealand safe. But no, that doesn't matter to this neoliberal party, because such things don't matter to them. It's all about bottom line and fiscalisation of the economy, return on asset, return on investment, and to hell with ordinary New Zealanders. And it's probably reflected when one goes and looks at the pecuniary interests and just sees where these people come from. We parachute, the neoliberal National Party of New Zealand parachutes people into rural New Zealand who are not from that area. What does it say to every rural National Party member? What does it say? Alistair Scott. What does it say to the people of the Wairarapa that the National Party would prefer to have a banker representing? He doesn't live there. Mr. Bridges says, well, Mr. Bridges, the man who is responsible for WorkSafe, he doesn't know that when you climb up a big ladder on a digger and you get to a certain height above the ground, Mr. Bridges, you should have a harness on. But that is Mr. Bridges, who brings a law to the House and then demonstrates, well, you know, do what I say, not what I do. And but it was a good morning, Mr. Bridges. But you do understand the impact that your legislation, the occupational safety and health legislation, is having in terms of compliance on those businesses that you so trumpet that you support, Mr. Bridges. So we were standing there at that particular event wearing hundreds of dollars of safety equipment. And Mr. Speaker, I kid you not, Mr. Scott was there, I was there, Mr. Bridges was there. I kid you not, we got out of that bus at the Wainawa Log Hub. We must have walked 10 metres from the bus to the area where we congregated so the minister could have the photo opportunity. But we wore the most expensive, flashiest high-vis jackets, padded and insulated as they were, all at the cost of Centreport, all at the cost of the logging industry, all at the cost of the truckers, the people who put on the event that day. We had brand spanking new hard hats. We had steel cap boots. Thousands and and thousands of dollars on us dignitaries, apparently we were, who turned up to watch Mr. Bridges cut a ribbon with a pair of scissors. And you know what? I did say to Mr. Bridges, as he took the scissors and he walked across that uneven ground towards that big loader, I said, Mr. Bridges, have you had a safety briefing on how to use those scissors? I don't want you cutting yourself. He hadn't. The irony isn't lost on us that this government would pass onerous legislation that the Labour Party might be proud of passing. It's not lost on New Zealand First. But I did attend, Mr. Speaker, the Civil Contractors Conference, where again, Mr. Bridges, he made a comment, and just say to me that we were probably seeing too much of each other that week. But he did open the event, and opened it well, Mr. Bridges, you did. But that was interesting listening to the... What was that?
Now you told everyone your secret.
No, we haven't talked about that. But we did attend that conference, and one of the things that came out from that conference, sitting there, listening to the debate and the discussion and the workshops, was how onerous the occupational safety and health legislation is now proving to be, and how it's got people thinking not about productivity, not about getting efficiency. It's about every second of every day sweating over whether the procedures are exactly right and identifying each and every risk, no matter how stupid and nonsensical that risk might actually be, such as 15 or 20 dignitaries getting out of a bus, stepping down that step onto a piece of prepared ground where they could observe someone cutting a ribbon and having to wear hard hats, big expensive high-vis jackets, steel cap boots, and not being allowed to actually go and have a look at the loaders operating, the train carriages being loaded, because that would have exposed them to risk. What a load of absolute nonsense and drivel. That's right. So let's talk about some other things, Mr. Speaker.
Good.
Last year, I could talk about these things for hours. Last year, Mr. English said of the 2015 budget, we're also starting to see the impact of government social investment and approach. With burglaries in Mid-Canterbury and South Canterbury up 40%, and where burglars in Northland have a 97% chance of getting away with it, he's right. We're seeing changes in social investment. 2008, Mr. Key promised that there would be one police officer for every 500 Kiwis. Well, when New Zealand First was in coalition government, we had the ratio down to one police officer for every 488. Now it's at one police officer for 526. So the government, after 8 long years, Mr. Speaker, has failed to hit its own very modest and pathetic target. It's failed to even keep pace with what it inherited from 2008. As the Right Honourable Winston Peters said, we need up to about another 1,900 police just to get to a point where we are comparable in police per capita ratios with the United Kingdom. As for the party that professes to be rural, it is full of MPs who couldn't tell a cow from a bull or the bull from the bull. And they're just about as out of touch as a tsunami of rural crime goes unreported because there are no police. Look at Carterton. We might well have a police station, Martinborough, but it's no sense having police stations if there are no police officers rostered on. And in Carterton, there hasn't been a police officer rostered on at the Carterton Police Station for over 6 months, which worries myself as a former mayor, because Carterton District Council is contributing half the wage to someone to sit at the desk to allow that place to be manned. But clearly it's not being manned by police officers. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't matter where we look at in this budget, and if I was to address some of the comments made thus far by the government members, I'd just like to draw their attention when they want to discuss immigration. We know what the government's view is on immigration. Open a door, allow people to be poured into this country to help their business mates increase their profit margins. It's about driving the minimum wage down. And we said back in March 2016, that New Zealanders were having to compete with people who were coming in accepting below the minimum wages, paid under the table, people who were competing for jobs that Kiwis should have been taking. And when this government says we've got a shortage of low-skilled workers, well, whose fault's that? Because the free market apparently was meant to provide all of those skilled workers and those apprenticeships. Well, quite clearly, the free market model has failed. And that's why we believe the government should have picked up its responsibility and funded trade training just as it used to do in the days when actually Mr Holyoake and Mr Muldoon, National Party Prime Ministers, were doing so.